January 21st, 1945. A fourth-floor apartment, Kinker Street District, Amsterdam. The sound is not a gunshot. It is not an explosion. It is the sharp cracking noise of dry, shiny wood breaking. Elizabeth Vandermeer, 19 years old, puts all her weak weight onto the wooden leg of her grandmother's piano stool. It breaks. The sound is shockingly loud in the frozen quiet. Her hands are red and raw, with skin split open from cold that has come in past the cardboard covering the window. This is survival. The stool leg is firewood. It is maybe 10 minutes of warmth. 10 minutes where the shaking in her chest might stop. This is the sound of Amsterdam in the 5th year of enemy control. The cheerful ringing of streetcar bells and the chatter of crowded cafes are memories from another lifetime. The city is now suffocated by an unnatural quiet broken only by the wind, the coughing from other apartments, and the steady breaking of furniture. This suffering, the hunger winter, was not an accident of war. It was a planned act of revenge. It began 5 months earlier, in September 1944. From London, the Dutch government in hiding broadcast a desperate message. All railway workers must strike. It was a gamble meant to stop German supply lines and support the massive Allied airborne invasion, Operation Market Garden. With incredible courage, 30,000 Dutch railway workers answered the call. They left their jobs, bringing the entire train network to a stop. But Market Garden failed. The airborne bridge to Arnhem collapsed. The Allies were stopped at the Rhine. The Western Netherlands, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, Utrecht, was left cut off. It was a prison of 4.5 million people, trapped between the Allied front line and the North Sea with their Nazi occupiers. The Reich's commissioner for the Netherlands, Arthur Sayce, Inquart, was furious about the strike. His punishment was not with bullets, but with paperwork. He signed an order placing an immediate total ban on all food and fuel shipments into the western provinces. He would use the canals and railways that the Dutch had so bravely shut down against them. The blockade was complete. The trap was set. The fall was terrifyingly fast. In October, the official bread ration, already small, was cut to 800 grams per week. By November, it was 400. By January, the idea of bread is a cruel joke. The ration card, once the key to survival, is now a useless piece of paper. Elizabeth cannot remember what real bread made from wheat tastes like. Her entire world, and the world of millions around her, has shrunk to a single desperate focus calories. You do not wake to an alarm clock. You wake to the painful, cramping feeling in your own stomach. You wake to the icy stillness of the room. You put on every piece of clothing you own, 2 dresses, a coat, a torn shawl. Then you walk. You walk past buildings that are being slowly eaten by their own residents. The wooden staircases are gone. The floorboards are gone. Doors, window frames, all torn out and burned. You walk past skinny figures, wrapped in dirty blankets, who huddle in doorways, no longer having the energy to move. They are the Museum Nunner, the walking dead of the city. You walk for 2 hours, guarding a small, blackened tin pot, to a central kitchen. The line stretches for blocks. After another hour, you receive your ration, a single spoonful of gray, watery liquid. It is soup. It is made from boiled sugar beets. It gives maybe 100 calories and a bitter, burning taste in the throat. The city's green spaces are gone. The beautiful trees of Vondelpark, every last one, have been cut down and burned. Now people are digging. They're on their hands and knees in the frozen gardens, clawing at the earth. They are digging for tulip bulbs. Elizabeth has eaten them. You must boil them for hours to remove the poison. They are bitter, tasting like chalk and wet dirt. They scrape the throat raw and sit like a stone in the belly, but they are calories. They might be one more day of life. The Lickenwagens, the death carts, make their rounds every morning. They are no longer pulled by horses. The horses were eaten in November. They are pulled by men who are paid in extra food rations. They collect the bodies of those who died in the night, their shapes easily visible under thin blankets. 20,000 people will die from starvation and cold before this winter ends. For Elizabeth, clutching her sliver of polished wood, there is only the cold, the emptiness, and a fading whispered rumor, a rumor passed by those brave enough to listen to the BBC on a hidden radio. South of the frozen rivers, beyond the flooded polders, the ones who had failed at Arnhem were gone. In their place, it was said, were the Canadians. November 2nd, 1944. The Walcheren Causeway. The sound is a high, speed crack followed by the wet, sickening thud of a bullet embedding in a soaked railway tie. Corporal Tom. Brick, Moffat of the Black Watch Royal Highland Regiment of Canada, presses his face into the slick, freezing mud. He doesn't dare lift his head. 2 feet in front of him, the raised railway track, the only dry land for miles, is soaked in the blood of his friends. To his left and right, a gray, terrifyingly flat stretch of flooded polder water stretches to the horizon. He is on a tiny strip of man-made land 40 yards wide and a mile long, connecting the mainland to Walcheren Island. This causeway is a perfect killing field. At the other end, dug into concrete bunkers, are German paratroopers, elite Fallschirmjäger, and they have every inch of this causeway targeted with MG 42 machine guns. Brick Moffat is cold. He is terrified. His wool uniform is soaked through with icy seawater, and it weighs a ton. But he is not hungry. Tucked into his pack is his 24-hour compo ration. It contains a tin of M&V, a thick meat and vegetable stew. It has a small tin of processed cheese, a block of oatmeal, 2 hardtack biscuits, a packet of tea, and a small bar of sweetened chocolate. Tucked in his breast pocket in a waterproof pouch are his Victory cigarettes. He would kill for one right now. He would kill for a dry pair of socks. This is the Battle of the Scheldt. For 3 months, the 1st Canadian Army, under General Harry Crerar, has been ordered to do the impossible, clear the 50-mile-long estuary leading to the port of Antwerp. Antwerp was captured intact, a miracle, but it is useless. The Germans control the estuary banks, especially the fortress of Walcheren Island. Until those guns are silenced, no supply ships can reach the Allied armies, and the final push into Germany is stalled. This is not a war of sweeping tank columns. This is a medieval siege fought in a flooded nightmare. The Canadians are fighting in amphibious buffalo landing craft, churning through flooded fields. They are fighting in hip, deep mud that sucks men down and breaks machinery. They are fighting an enemy who is smart, ruthless, and has had 4 years to prepare. The Germans have blown the dikes, intentionally flooding the landscape, forcing the Canadian attack into narrow, predictable choke points like this causeway. The cost is huge. By the time Walcheren falls, the Battle of the Scheldt will have cost the Canadians over 6,300 casualties, killed, wounded, or missing, a price as high as any battle in Normandy. After the Scheldt is finally cleared, Brick Moffat's unit is moved. They are sent to hold the island, a miserable, half-submerged strip of farmland between the Maas and Wall rivers near Nijmegen. They are now the water rats. They live in flooded barns and waterlogged foxholes, staring across a watery, no man's land at the German positions. It is here, in the freezing damp of early 1945, that they begin to hear the stories. The Dutch resistance fighters who slip across the lines, brave men and women who act as guides, look wrong. They are thin, not army lean, but skeletal. Their eyes are too bright, their faces hollowed out. An intelligence officer debriefing a resistance man casually offers him a cigarette. The man's hand trembles so violently he cannot take it. He stares at the pack of sweet Caporal cigarettes with a desperate, animal hunger. Patrols in their buffalo vehicles sometimes find small homemade boats adrift. Inside are civilians, often frozen solid, who had tried to cross the heavily patrolled rivers. The soldiers assume they are fleeing the fighting. They cannot understand they are fleeing starvation. To the average Canadian soldier, the hunger winter is an idea. A tragedy, yes, but one happening on the other side of the war. Their immediate, deadly problem is the German paratrooper 300 yards away, who is clearly not starving. The Germans are still well fed, well armed, and shooting at them every single day. The war is not over, not by a long shot. The entire Allied high command under Eisenhower is focused on one goal, the final destruction of the Wehrmacht. The grand strategy, codenamed Operation Veritable, is being planned. The 1st Canadian Army and British XXX Corps are to launch a huge offensive. Punching east from Nijmegen through the Siegfried Line, smashing through the Reichswald forest, and breaking out onto the Rhine plain. It will be a meat grinder. The strategic priority is Germany. The humanitarian crisis in Amsterdam, tragically, is a sideshow. A problem to be solved after the war is won. So Brick Moffat sits in his damp slit trench, cleaning the mud from his lee, in-field rifle for the 10th time that day. He curses the rain. He curses the Germans. He curses the cold, bland M&V stew. He dreams of a hot meal, a soft bed, and a ship home to Nova Scotia. He has no idea that just 60 miles to the north, a population of millions is dreaming of the very stew he is complaining about. He cannot imagine a world where a man would risk a German machine gun just for a single stale biscuit. He doesn't know it yet, but his war is about to change. The fight to defeat an army is about to become a race to save a nation. February 8, 1945. The Reichswald Forest. German border. The sound is a deafening, rolling thunder. A sound so continuous it stops being individual cannon shots and becomes a single, earth-shaking vibration. Over 1,000 Allied guns have opened fire, pounding the German positions in the Reichswald. Operation Veritable has begun. This is the meat grinder. For Corporal Brick Moffat and the 1st Canadian Army, the rumors of starvation in Amsterdam are now a distant, irrelevant echo. Their entire reality is the 75-square-mile forest in front of them. The Germans call it Blutwald, the blood forest, and they will fight for every single tree. The offensive, planned as a swift armored thrust, immediately bogs down. A sudden thaw combined with the intentional flooding of the Rhine turns the battlefield into a prehistoric swamp. Tanks sink to their turrets in mud. Infantrymen weighed down by 80 pounds of gear fight chest deep in icy water. It is a battle of attrition fought with bayonets, grenades, and flamethrowers in the dark, shattered woods. It is a Canadian slogging match, and the casualties are horrific. As the Canadians bleed in Germany fighting east, the trap in Western Holland, 60 miles to the west, snaps shut. March 1st, 1945, Amsterdam. The sugar beet soup is gone. The central kitchens, having exhausted their last supplies of rotten potatoes and spoiled grain, have closed. The tulip bulbs have all been eaten. The parks and verges have been dug up down to the frozen clay. The official ration is no longer small. It is zero. The city's infrastructure ceases to exist. There is no gas. There is no electricity. The water pressure is gone, and the canals, now open sewers, have frozen solid. The Lichtenwagens, the death carts, stop their rounds. There is no fuel for them, and the men who pulled them are now dead or too weak to work. The dying, which had been a steady, grim count, now speeds up into a catastrophe. In her fourth-floor apartment, Elizabeth Vandermeer no longer gets out of bed. The broken piano stool is long gone. There is nothing left to burn. She and her mother lie under a pile of every blanket, coat, and rug they own. They are not just cold. They are becoming cold from the inside. This is the final medical stage of starvation. It is a quiet, horrible, and deeply lonely process. Her body, having used up its last reserves of fat and muscle, has begun to consume its own organs. Her ankles and wrists are strangely swollen, a condition called hunger edema. Her skin is like dry paper, covered in sores that will not heal. She no longer feels the gnawing pangs of hunger. That was a luxury of the early winter. Now there is only a vast, crushing emptiness, a deep tiredness that makes the simple act of lifting her head impossible. She weighs 82 pounds. Her world has shrunk to the 4 square feet of her mattress. People are dying in their homes in silence. They are dying in the streets, and the bodies are left where they fall. The living themselves, skeletal, no longer have the strength to bury the dead. Amsterdam, once one of the most vibrant cities in Europe, is becoming a mass grave. Then, miles away, the war shifts. April 12, 1945, Arnhem. The 1st Canadian Corps, having finally crossed the Rhine, now swings north. Their objective is to clear the eastern and northern Netherlands. They fight their way through Apeldoorn and Arnhem, the scene of the British airborne disaster. The fighting is still bitter, but the German resistance is finally breaking. Within a week, Canadian tanks have reached the North Sea, liberating towns like Zwolle and Groningen. They have cut off the German forces in Holland from the Reich. But then they stop. They stop at a defensive line, the Greb Line. In front of them lies Utrecht, Amsterdam, The Hague, Fortress Holland. It is still held by 250,000 German troops under General Johannes Blaskowitz. These troops are cut off, beaten, and have nowhere to go. But they are still armed, and Reichskommissar Seyss Inquart is still in charge. General Charles Foulkes, commander of the 1st Canadian Corps, faces an impossible choice. He could order a full-scale assault, but it would be a bloodbath. It would mean fighting street to street in Amsterdam, destroying the very cities and people he is supposed to save. It would be a second Stalingrad, and Seyss Inquart has given the order if the Allies attack. His engineers will blow the remaining dikes and flood the entire country, drowning hundreds of thousands of civilians in a final act of spite. The 1st Canadian Army grinds to a halt. They are 30 miles away from the dying, and they cannot move. Seyss Inquart is holding 4.5 million Dutch civilians hostage. A series of frantic secret negotiations begins. Eisenhower, now Supreme Allied Commander, gets involved. He sends a message to Seyss Inquart. The war is over. Surrender now, and you will be treated as a soldier. Continue this, and you will be tried as a mass murderer. Seyss Inquart, a cold-blooded fanatic, sees his last bargaining chip. He agrees to a truce. He will allow Allied food in, but not Allied soldiers. The occupation must continue. On April 28th, in her frozen apartment, Elizabeth hears a new sound. It is not the rattling cardboard or the distant, sporadic pop of a sniper's rifle. It is a deep, thunderous, all-encompassing rumble, a sound that vibrates in her teeth. It is the sound of hundreds of heavy engines. She thinks, this is it. The end. The Allies have tired of waiting. This is the final bombardment. The firebombing that will flatten the city. She doesn't have the strength to move to the window. She just lies still, waiting for the whistle of the bombs. The rumble becomes a deafening roar. The sky, gray and indifferent for so long, is suddenly black with aircraft. They are Avro Lancasters, massive 4, engine bombers from RAF Bomber Command. They are flying impossibly low, so low the entire building shakes. So low people in the streets can see the faces of the bomb aimers. The bomb bays open. But it is not bombs that fall. It is a rain of burlap sacks. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands, tumbling end over end. They are marked with a white cross and the word FOD. Operation Manna has begun. They land on airfields, in parks, on racetracks. The sacks burst, scattering their contents. Tins of Spam, army biscuits, sacks of flour, dried milk. And precious, miraculous blocks of chocolate. People who have not run in months are crawling from their homes. They are weeping, laughing hysterically, stuffing handfuls of dry flour into their mouths. They are warned not to. Their shrunken stomachs cannot take it. Many die from the shock of that first meal. It is a miracle from the sky, but it is not enough. The drops are chaotic. The German troops still control the roads. The food piles up at the drop zones, but the Dutch resistance, weakened and disorganized, cannot distribute it. The people in the inner cities, like Elizabeth, are still too weak to walk to the airfields. The truce is fragile. The sky drops are a temporary, desperate fix. What the Netherlands needs is not just food from the sky. It needs boots on the ground. It needs trucks, thousands of them. It needs organization, logistics, and a secure supply line. In his headquarters, General Folks receives an urgent, bizarre directive. The operation is codenamed Faust. The 1st Canadian Army is to prepare to move into enemy territory, not to fight but to feed. May 2nd, 1945. The Grebelijn near Wageningen. The sound is the low, powerful rumble of a Canadian military pattern, CMP truck idling in a huge line. Private Jack Collins of the Royal Canadian Army Service Corps grips the hard plastic steering wheel. His knuckles are white. He can see his own breath. His job is logistics. He drives trucks. He has hauled ammunition to artillery batteries under shellfire in the Reichswald. He has hauled pontoons to the Rhine. He has hauled the dead. He thought he'd seen everything. He has never seen this. His truck, and the 200 behind it, are loaded to the canvas tops with compo rations, flour, and tins of high-calorie biscuits. He is at the head of the first food convoy, and this convoy is about to drive, under a white flag, through the German front line. The order is clear. You are not a conquering force. You are a delivery service. No sudden movements, no provocations. You will drive to designated depots, unload, and you will not distribute rations directly to the people. All food must be handled by the organized, starving Dutch resistance at the drop-off points. It's a cold, logistical order, but a necessary one. You can't have 1,000 trucks swarmed by 1,000,000 desperate people. It would be a riot. It would be chaos. It would stop the flow. The Canadian military policeman waves a green flag. The convoy lurches forward. Jack engages the clutch. His truck rolls, past the last Canadian checkpoint, past a Bren gun carrier parked in a ditch, its crew watching him with bewildered expressions. He drives into the 200-yard stretch of no man's land. Then he sees the other side. A German checkpoint. A potato masher grenade hangs from the belt of a sentry. An MG-42, Hitler's buzzsaw, is mounted in a sandbag nest, its muzzle pointed directly at his windshield. The German soldiers, their faces gray with defeat and exhaustion, stare at him. They are still armed. They are still the enemy. But they do not raise their rifles. They step aside. Jack's truck, filled with 6,000 pounds of life, saving food, rolls past the machine gun that just 3 days ago would have torn him to shreds for even showing his helmet. The landscape changes instantly. It's like driving from a world of noise and color into a silent, black and white film. The liberated side was damaged by war, but it was alive. This side is dead. The fields are barren. The towns are silent. There are no bicycles. There are no cars. There is no smoke from the chimneys. And then he sees the people. They begin to appear as if rising from the earth. They are lining the road. But they are not cheering. They are not waving the orange flags he'd been told about. They are utterly, terrifyingly silent. They look like skeletons. Skeletons draped in filthy, oversized rags. Their faces are sunken, the skin stretched like yellowed paper over skulls. Their eyes are huge, dark, and hollow, and they all have the same unblinking, 1,000-yard stare. They do not wave. They do not smile. They just watch the convoy pass, their bodies too weak to show emotion. Jack is a 20-year-old from Guelph, Ontario. He's seen death. He's seen the mangled bodies of his friends. This is worse. This is a nation of the living dead. He grips the wheel, his jaw tight. Follow orders. Don't look. Get to the depot. He passes a woman on the side of the road, standing by a ruined milestone. She looks about 60, but she's probably 30. She's holding a small child, a toddler who isn't moving. The child's head is swollen and too large for its stick, thin, spidery limbs, classic kwashiorkor. The woman just stares at his truck, her gaze empty. Jack's military discipline, drilled into him for 2 years, evaporates. His hand instinctively dives for his own musette bag, slung over the passenger seat. He fumbles inside, past his spare socks, past his letters from home. He feels what he's looking for, his personal 24-hour ration, the small bar of sweetened, high-calorie Canadian chocolate, the one he was saving. His truck is moving at a crawl, barely 5 miles an hour. He doesn't stop. He doesn't even think. He just yanks his hand out, leans across the passenger side, and in a single desperate motion, throws the chocolate bar out the open window. It's a bad throw. It lands in the dirt at the woman's feet. The woman flinches as if struck. She looks down at the brown and silver wrapper. She looks up at Jack's truck as it rumbles past. Her face, a mask of total emptiness, suddenly, agonizingly, crumples. She doesn't dive for the food. She just covers her face with her skeletal hands and begins to sob. Her shoulders heaving in the first display of human emotion Jack has seen on this entire road. He looks in his side mirror. He sees her slowly, painfully bend down. She picks it up. She stares at it as if it's an alien object. Then she tears the wrapper with trembling fingers and, weeping, presses a tiny piece to her child's lips. Jack looks ahead. His throat is tight. He's not the only one. All down the line, the dam has broken. From the cabs of the CMP trucks, from the open backs of the 15 Quat carriers, from the turrets of the armored cars escorting the convoy, arms are emerging. Battle, hardened men who stormed the flooded dikes of the Scheldt and fought hand in the Blutwald, are emptying their pockets. Tins of bully beef, packets of army biscuits, cigarettes, chewing gum, their own personal chocolate bars, all of it their own rations. The food meant to keep them going is being thrown to the silent crowds. It is a spontaneous, uncontrollable, human breach of military protocol. And for the Dutch, the reaction is one of profound, earth-shattering disbelief. They are scrambling, weeping, holding these small tins and bars up to the sky like sacred objects. They cannot believe it. After 5 years of organized, systematic theft by the occupiers, where every potato, every ounce of grain was stolen from them, they are watching soldiers giving them food, not selling it, not trading it, giving it from their own pockets. The Dutch civilians couldn't believe it. And for the Canadian soldiers, staring at the walking skeletons of Amsterdam, they couldn't believe the horror they had found. The rumors were real. The war, for them, had just found a new and more profound meaning. May 5th, 1945. The Hotel de Wereld, Wageningen. The sound is the dry, scratching noise of a fountain pen on heavy paper. In the small, bomb-damaged hotel, a table is draped with a simple army blanket. On one side sits German General Johannes Blaskowitz, commander of the 25th Army. His face is a mask of rigid, professional resignation. His uniform is perfect. He will not show emotion. Across from him sits Lieutenant General Charles Faust, commander of the 1st Canadian Corps. Faust's face is grim, not triumphant. This is not a celebration. It is a procedure. The terms of surrender, typed on a simple sheet of military paper, are read aloud in English and German. The surrender of all 250,000 German troops in Fortress Holland is total, unconditional, and effective at 08 Hodger hours the following morning. Blaskowitz takes the pen. He signs. He clicks his heels, gives a short, stiff bow, and walks out. The war in the Netherlands is over. The news, transmitted by military radio, is confirmed by the BBC. It spreads not like fire, but like an electric shock. For 2 days, the cities of Western Holland exist in a state of suspended animation. The German troops are still there, still armed, but their authority has vanished. They are ghosts waiting for collection. The Dutch, still starving, wait, hardly daring to breathe. Then, on May 7th, 1945, Amsterdam. This time the sound is not a splintering piece of wood. It is not the rumble of a single convoy. It is a roar. It is the sound of 1 million people, skeletal and weak, finding their voices all at once. This is not the cautious, silent, gray convoy of Operation Faust. This is the liberation. Private Jack Collins is driving his CMP truck again, but this time he is not driving through a silent line of German sentries. He is driving into a tidal wave of human joy. The infantry is here. The water rats of the Scheldt. The men of the Black Watch and the Regiment de la Chaudy are riding on the hulls of Sherman tanks. Their weapons slung, their faces a mixture of confusion and overwhelming joy. The streets, gray and dead for 5 years, have exploded into a single violent color orange. After years of being verboten, the color of the Dutch royal house of orange is everywhere. It is draped from every balcony, hung from every lamppost, worn as armbands, hats, and dresses. The Dutch flags, hidden for 5 years under floorboards and in false walls, are waving from every single window. Elizabeth Vandermeer, who had not left her apartment for weeks, is in the street. The adrenaline of the moment, the sheer unbelievable joy, has given her a strength she thought was gone forever. She is standing on Dam Square as the 1st Canadian tanks rumble over the cobblestones. The people are climbing. They are climbing onto the tanks, onto the trucks, onto the hoods of the jeeps. They are swarming the soldiers. Jack Collins can barely drive. He's moving at less than walking pace. His truck is covered in people. An old man, weeping, is trying to hand him a small, carved wooden shoe. A young woman has jumped onto the running board, grabbed his face, kissed him square on the mouth, and disappeared back into the crowd, leaving a bright red lipstick print on his cheek. His steering wheel is slippery with lipstick. The Canadian soldiers are completely, utterly overwhelmed. These are not parade, ground soldiers. These are the survivors of the Scheldt, of the Reichswald of Ortuna. They are battle-hardened, exhausted men accustomed to snipers, mud, shellfire, and the constant presence of death. They are not accustomed to this. They are not prepared for a tidal wave of gratitude. They are being kissed, hugged, and lifted into the air by a population that sees them not just as soldiers, but as angels. Flowers, kept alive in secret, are being stuffed into the barrels of their Lee, Enfield rifles, into the webbing of their helmets, into the hatches of their tanks. A battle-hardened infantryman, a man who had taken a German position in the dikes just a month before, is sitting on the side of his universal carrier, his face buried in his hands, weeping uncontrollably as a Dutch grandmother strokes his hair. And the food. This time it is not a secret, spontaneous breach of protocol. This is the official mission. Jack Collins is not throwing his single personal chocolate bar. He and his fellow drivers are standing on the flatbeds of their trucks, roaring with laughter, and tossing down entire cases of compo rations. Tins of M&V stew, tins of bully beef, blocks of cheese, packets of biscuits. They are throwing them into the crowd as fast as they can. The Dutch, who had wept at a single piece of chocolate, are now staring in disbelief at the sheer, unimaginable quantity. They are looking at more food in one place than they have seen in 5 years. They thought the Canadians were just kind. They now realize the Canadians were also rich. Their kindness was backed by an industrial might that was, to the starving Dutch, a miracle in itself. But the party in the streets, the kisses and the flowers, is only the emotional release. The real liberation is the systematic, logistical miracle that happens next. The party fades as the Royal Canadian Army Service Corps, RCASC, Jack's unit, goes into overdrive. The mission is no longer just to deliver boxes. It is to save a nation from the immediate medical effects of starvation. They seize warehouses. They establish thousands of food distribution points in every neighborhood. Most importantly, they bring in the mobile field kitchens and bakeries. The sound of the city changes again. It is no longer silence. It is not just cheering. It is the sizzle of massive field stoves. It is the roar of the burners in the mobile bakeries. And, for the first time in a year, the air of Amsterdam is filled not with the smell of death and coal smoke, but with the unbelievable, holy scent of baking bread. Elizabeth stands in a line, but this is not the gray, silent, hopeless line for sugar-beet water. This line is buzzing with chatter, with laughter. At the front, a Canadian soldier, his sleeves rolled up, smiles at her. He does not hand her a tin. He hands her a steaming metal mug. It's soup, but it's thick, dark, and hot. It's Canadian Army stew, full of meat and vegetables. It smells impossibly good. He also hands her a thick slice of real, white, freshly baked bread. She takes the mug, her hands trembling. She takes a bite of the bread. It is soft. It is warm. The warmth spreads from her mouth down her throat and into her chest. It is not just food, it is life. It is a promise. It is the end of the hunger winter and the beginning of everything else. The Dutch civilians, who had been starved by the calculated cruelty of one army, were now being saved by the spontaneous, overwhelming generosity of another. They would never forget it. If this story changed how you think about war and humanity, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss stories that challenge everything you thought you knew about history. What would you have done in this situation? Let us know in the comments below.